Good day, everybody, and thank you all for taking your time and joining in on this webinar. We are looking at somewhat like a 45-minute session with some additional 5 minutes at the end if there are any questions. My colleague Melissa is on the call as well. So if you experience any issues with the sound or video quality during this session, you can please type in the chat and to make her aware about this. We will try to improve it on it. If you do have any questions, you can write them in the questions field below as well, and I will try to answer up towards these after the session as well. My name is Niels Persson. I've been with the PDSVISION company for the last 12 years in various technical positions. I'm currently based in Stockholm, Sweden, working as a product manager for parts of the myPDS suite. PDSVISION is, I guess, first and foremost, a complete reseller towards PDC, but at times when we have had trouble resolving certain use cases only with the PTC portfolio, we have developed our own products. Sort of our collected experience from thousands of PLM and CAD implementations. And I will be your host for this session. The topic for today is myPDS search. I would say this is a good example of PDSVISION's development strategy. It's been with us for at least 10 years in the making and close to 100 production implementations today. The challenge that we saw with this product and that we felt that we needed to resolve were with infrequent users found the PLM environment too complex and hard to navigate, even with some in-depth training. The simple solution is to turn to your colleagues that work with PLM on a daily basis, asking them to export and email data from the system. But many times this resulted in both parties being quite unproductive. And whether this data is exported as sent over emails or batch exported to a network drive, there is always an uncertainty to its quality over time. Are these drawings still the latest released ones that we can purchase and manufacture based on? The result of this could, in worst cases, be back orders, errors in production that can be quite costly in the end. Our solution to this is myPDS Search. It's a simplified UI that acts on top of Windchill. It's still installed on the Windchill server. It uses the Windchill authentication and access rights. And the whole idea around this product and its framework is that it's highly customizable. So any of the UI elements can be adapted to a specific role or department within the enterprise. This could be anything from the search criteria and various types of filtering to what type of metadata or neutral formats that we would like to retrieve from the system, or any logic in between. All of this boils down to that users of this interface requires little to no training required, and they will always look at the actual data within the Windchill environment. We can create one of these views, or we can create multiple views. So if purchasing and manufacturing have different needs for an interface like this, why not set up two different views for the various departments' needs? This could once again be anything from what you base your search on to what you want to retrieve from the environment, or if we need to post-process that data in any way. The idea is that you will have a tailored experience when you browse the Windchill environment. Typical user groups and use cases for this product are purchasing departments, manufacturing employees, or various types of manager roles. And the use cases, they are everything from compiling various types of neutral files for external parties, like a subcontractor, to generating a bill of material report with all of its related drawings, for instance. Could be converting objects into specific neutral file formats using the worker on the Windchill side, or to visually compare changes in between two versions. On the manufacturing side, it's very common to see the latest released content directly on screen, perhaps moving away from a more paperless environment. You can also participate using this UI in the change process in Windchill. For instance, in manufacturing, filing a problem report directly from this UI towards the Windchill environment, contributing to the change process that is ongoing in Windchill. For various manager roles, it could be, once again, to generate different types of reportings, perhaps from the change processes that are ongoing, or listing a full product structure directly from these views. I will leave the slides for a moment and jump over to a live environment that we have here. To access this product, you would do just as you would with Windchill. You type in the URL, you can define a specific ending to it, in this case PDS search. You will be prompted with a login, and this is the first page that you will land on. In this case, we have a set of input fields and some additional options or checkboxes. But to give you an idea of what this is about, I'm going to start by typing in a number field in this. And we will do a lookup towards the Windchill environment on which this is running, displaying any number that matches the one I've typed. So in this case, we have a WT part, it's linked assembly in this case, and a drawing that matches this number too. If you want to focus on only working with the articles, or you're very CAD-centric, we can of course filter out any unnecessary data also in these types of lookups. For this demo, I will focus very much on the WT parts, and I will select this ProRide chassis. Once I've selected this, I can do any additional options to it. It could be various types of filtering, maybe on another type of object like the baseline, or state filter, choosing the latest release or the latest version, whatever the state is. Additionally, I can choose various types of file formats that I would like to retrieve from the system. In this first example, I will just search for the drawing. So if we click on search, a very simple table will be displayed with some metadata from the Windchill environment. And what I want you to be aware of here is we searched on the WT part, we're looking for the drawing, and we can retrieve attributes from the part in itself, like the part number. We have a link to the part within the Windchill environment. From here, you could typically consume all other types of attributes or any linked objects to it. But we also navigate towards the CAD assembly, retrieving the Creo view link to the lightweight representation of the 3D model. Could spend probably an hour talking about Creo view alone. You've probably seen it before as well, but clicking on this link would open up the lightweight viewer so you can review the 3D model directly. We can get some thumbnails, both from the 3D model in itself and also from the drawing. And the rest of the information here is retrieved from that drawing that we're collecting. So that could be number, name, its revision, the file name, of course, and the representation. I'll come back to that one, the state, and in this case, also the created by attribute, as well as what type of object this is. Drawing in this case could be a document type or other types of representations, for instance. The file name here, what we mean by drawing is the drawing representation that the worker has created. And the PDF is available. You can either click on it, depending on your browser settings. This will open up in a new tab, or it will download to your client directly. So what I want you to take with you is that we could pull data from the WT part in itself, but also any of the linked objects to it, like the assembly or the drawing in this case. And what you see right here, this is just a simple example for the demo purposes. So what is relevant for the user groups at your company is, of course, what we should put forward in this display as well. The idea around the search functionality here is that you can build up this table of multiple searches. So I can choose yet again another WT part. I have that drawing still clicked. I click on search and I got another row added to it. And like this, I could quite quickly add a set of drawings that I need to compile. Either if I'm working on the assembly line, maybe I need these drawings to do my work there, and I can view these directly on screen, either by opening them up or activating some of the actions, like the inline viewer. This will present you with a simplified table, also once again, fully configurable to the attributes that are relevant to you. And by clicking on any of the PDFs, they will open up on the right-hand side. From this view, you can choose to print it if you need it, or you can save it directly. If there are multiple sheets to it, you can jump in between the different views on that. And so it's a simple way to view these drawings directly and can easily toggle in between the ones you have collected in that table. So apart from adding a single number at a time, you can of course use various types of filterings, like semicolon could do multiple searches as once, 2 numbers at a go, or you can use various types of wildcards like a asterisk or perhaps a question mark to add in and search for all of the drawings starting with 153826. So quickly could you build up a search result that you need to view directly on screen, or perhaps to export. If we walk over to the left-hand side here, we have the zipping functionality. This allows you to multi-select everything that you have in the current view, or you can deselect and make a sub-selection from that of specific drawings that you would like to retrieve. By clicking on the zip file, we will generate a package, and once it's downloaded, we open this up. All of the drawings that you wanted to retrieve is available in one click of a button, basically. Apart from the zipping, we also have a reporting functionality. It's called Excel in this view. Clicking on that button will give you an Excel report matching what you see in the table currently. So this will hold all of the metadata that you made available for the reporting. And that could be also the links in towards the Windchill environment, could be those thumbnails, just to give you a hint on what you're looking at, as well as the PDF representation that will look towards the Windchill environment. There is also a possibility to add in a little bit of logic in this. This is a simple example, but if a certain column holds a certain value, we can set it to a specific color. So in this case, if the state column has a value of released, it will turn green. If it would be in another state, it wouldn't be colored in. Just to give you a quick indication of which ones of these rows are ready for production or to order on, just as a qualification step. Additionally, you can add a little bit of header information, and also, of course, your specific logo or a footer to this if you choose to print it. The final action is the export action, and this will do both of these. So basically, we will export all of the PDFs that are available, or if there are other types of formats in your table currently, like STEP or DXF, these will of course also be included. We will also generate this Excel file and present you with a zip containing both. So browsing through the files, you can see the individual PDF files. With this functionality, you also have a possibility to build sort of a folder structure that could mimic the structure to these files, as well as the Excel then that creates a report, once again, that we saw before. The difference here is that the links are now pointing towards the files within that zip file. So this package becomes sort of obsolete from Windchill. It's something you can send to an external party. They have access to the files they need, and the Excel could act as an index of what you're sending and maybe some additional metadata that you want to provide them. And there are multiple ways of searching. I'm very focused right now on the numbering field, but if you need to search on other types of objects in the Windchill, if you're working with the change process or perhaps the baseline, you can search based off of these as well. So inputting a baseline number will do just as before, show you a lookup towards the system of something matching this specific number. If I choose this object, I can choose what to collect from it, in this case the drawings once again, and I will receive the result set from what is within that specific baseline. So the drawings that were part of that baseline, those are the ones that are being retrieved. This is a simple way to do a collection in Windchill and that you can retrieve. The same thing works with, for instance, the ECN. So if I add in a few searching for one of the ECNs here, I know it contains a set of documents. Searching on that will retrieve those documents for me. So quite simply, I can collect everything related to a certain ECN or a baseline, promotion request, whatever object there might be in the Windchill. Going back a little bit to the numbers field again. So we have searched based on individual objects. So if I go back to my assembly, the ProRide chassis, this holds a set of child levels to it. And if I choose the drawings and click on search, I will get that specific single row for that specific part in itself. If I add also the structure to this, we will start on that specific level and traverse the structure, trying to find any drawings on a lower level. So this can be a quick and effective way to search for all of the drawings within a certain module or perhaps even a part of a product, to retrieve everything at once from that level and downwards, so to speak. Same thing here, you can activate any of the actions, choosing to export this content or view these drawings directly on your screen. An additional way of searching that has been very much on feedback from the end users is that they work excessively with Excel. This could be reports that are being sent from external parties. It could be a report that is generated from an ERP environment or from other types of system, or simply a list that they build up because they need to collect a set of drawings to send to a certain external party, for instance. This is a very simple example with only a couple of rows to it, but perhaps we can say that we need to collect all of the drawings for these two companies, for instance. I could, of course, since they aren't that many, I could provide a string of this or input one by one into the numbers field to build up that table, just as we did before. But if this list is in the hundreds, it's still going to take you some time to do that. So instead, we provide you with an ability to grab a hold of that Excel file, drag it onto the screen, and let go of it. At this point, we will parse the content of that file, displaying the same data as you saw previously. But there's really no way for us to tell what column holds the information you want to search for. So you would have to choose what column we're targeting. You can select all of the rows, or you can choose a subset of the rows. You can choose OK. The selection now in the numbers pane would be selection from file. So the input is coming from what you entered. From here on out, just the same as we saw before. We can choose what files we want to retrieve, apart from the PDF for the drawing representation, perhaps also the step files. I can choose search, and we will perform a search on those numbers from the Excel. Pretty quick and convenient way to retrieve a list of numbers from the Windchill environment. As you can see, we, apart from the PDFs, we also retrieve the step files in this case. Just as you saw before, we can choose to do an export also on any of these content that are being retrieved. If you simply want to retrieve the step files and you have a long list, you can use the filtering capabilities of the table to search, for instance, for step. And by selecting everything that I have currently in the view, clicking on zip will render a new zip file with only the step files, for instance. We also have a set of simplified actions within the environment. Searching for instance, this number will render a part that has several revisions to it. If I select this row and is interested in the history, I can go to Actions and choose the History view. This will show me either all of the revisions, the latest revisions that are available, or in this case, any instance of that specific drawing. I can choose once again what metadata we want to make available in the history view, and you could utilize the inline viewer once again to view these various versions directly on the right-hand side. So flipping in between, I can see the 1.2 version or the 2.1 by clicking that specific file name, re-rendering the inline viewer with that data. And even for a simple detail like this one, it can be kind of tricky to find the changes sometimes, even if you do not have a change table in your drawings. So by selecting two of these drawings and choosing Compare PDF, we will take these two PDFs, put them on top of one another to color in any of the changes that have been made in between these two versions. So as you can see here at the bottom, it's pretty clear that the diameter of this hole has changed in between those two versions. Clicking once again on the 1.2 version, for instance, will show me what that specific version looked like, and I can at any time go back and look at the latest version and see that change very clearly. So it sort of speeds up the process to find that change in between two drawings, for instance. Other types of actions that are available, and we can just do a little bigger selection to this, are, for instance, if you are working with the change process, we have capabilities of filing, for instance, a problem report. And so by selecting one of those levels where we have found that issue, navigating over to the Actions pane, creating a new PR. This will show you the input fields that are required to fill out to file a problem report. Apart from this, the user will see the affected objects of if we're performing a change on this selected one. These are the objects that will be affected by this change, and also the affected end items towards that one. Additionally, you can drag and drop any document or images that is describing this problem before you go ahead and file this towards the Windchill environment. This will then take the same route as if you're filing a problem report within Windchill. And this is a great way of having users also from this UI being part and contributing to the change process within Windchill as well. This also works for, in the same way, to create an ECR, for instance, if you're not working with the problem report specifically. Apart from this, there can be occasions where we need to, in this case, perhaps the worker has failed here. It doesn't hold a PDF representation for this, even though there is an available drawing to it. Could be that it hasn't been generated, or it's still in the queue, for instance, or it has failed to perform the publishing at some point in time. In these cases, we also saw a lot of users turning to the daily users of Windchill, asking them to republish this drawing, for instance. But instead, we've chosen to add functionalities or a simplified publishing interface into this, the myPDS search product as well. So you can select one of the rows, for instance, or if there are multiple drawings that you need to create new content for, and choose publish under action. These objects, retrieving both the part or the assembly in this case, as well as the drawing into this table, will render a small table displaying these objects, as well as a sort of a matrix of the various neutral file formats that you would allow the users to be able to publish on demand, so to speak. So a user can select all of these files. I need a step file for those, or individual components that you need to generate them for. And for the drawings, for instance, you need a format like DVG or DXF that could be generated in the same way. Once the user chooses publish, this will be sent over to the worker instance to generate these drawings, where it's added to the queue to get generated. There are some options to this. We can choose what type of config spec we want to generate this on, or depending on the methodology that you use, we can lock this down to always publish as stored, for instance. And if this should be generated as an independent representation from the Windchill environment that is coming from the myPDS search product. So it will be a secondary representation on that level. Once we click on publish, once again, these jobs are sent over to the Windchill environment, and once they are finalized, they will be able to search for these step files within the Windchill environment, or within the search UI as well. And apart from searching for individual rows and their content files, whether it's the drawing representation, it could be representation for documents, as we saw with the ECN, or it could be other types of neutral file formats. Once again, these are just an example. If you have IGES or other types of neutral files, we can retrieve these just as well. And we can exchange these checkboxes for a set of checkboxes that matches your needs. It could be one that says neutral files, for instance. But apart from searching based on individual components, we can also perform a BOM search for the full structure for this article, for instance. So if I click on BOM instead of search, it will generate another type of table. It will display all of the levels to 0114659. And using these plus signs, I'm able to navigate to lower levels to see also their related drawings or content from it. So these are two ways that we can render the result in this. In some cases, you want both of these types of views. Others might be more keen on getting the content using search or targeting the files more specifically. Others want to see the full structure, also showing levels that might not have a related drawing, for instance. Apart from clicking on the BOM level, we can choose multi-level BOM. So it will start on this level it will show us a report generating all of the levels at once, and so you don't have to expand to lower levels. The actions that we have seen here over the last couple of minutes, they work just the same. So we can generate an Excel that will sort of display what we see currently in the BOM view. So it will show you the levels or any other type of BOM related attributes like quantity or as well as links to these articles within the Windchill environment, as well as the content files again. And also we can choose the zipping or the export of this to export also all of the related files, just as we saw previously with the searching capabilities. The actions are also available, as well as the inline viewer, so you can view these drawings directly on screen. Once again, we can build one of these interfaces. This might be just a little bit cluttered with a lot of features to it, but that's just for the demo purposes. So we can build one URL that targets the manufacturing users, for instance, and a completely different view that would act for a purchasing department. Depending on what input fields you require for that specific role and what type of search we want to retrieve, either both or one of these, for instance, as well as the actions that we see. Apart from this, we can do a set of post-processing of this data. And this is a very typical examples is that the worker generates a certain file name for the neutral files and the PDFs. You can combine any of the attributes that we retrieve into that file name. So if you need the numbering as well as the revision and the state to be part of that file name, that is something we can do as we export these files from Windchill as well. We also have some water stamping capabilities if you want to add some type of logo or information stamped on top of the PDFs that could be generated in this specific view and not necessarily on the Windchill side as well. Apart from these types of views that we see now with searching and bill of material, we have a set of different modules that are available as well. We won't really have time to cover all of them in this session, but I'll show you the reports view at least. This is something that comes out of the box with the product, and it holds a set of change reports. You can, for instance, pick some for the problem reporting. Some of these holds this type of modal where you can choose to filter on a certain state or during a time period, but I'm just going to leave that for now. And it will display all of the current problem reports that we have in the environment. This gives you a quick overview of all of the change objects that are open currently, for instance, or how we're progressing in a change process. And just as before, you can choose what type of IDAs or article attributes that you want to display in these tables. We can choose to add in certain types of actions to this, creating a report from the content that we see, for instance, or if you also retrieve certain types of content files to it, you can export these using the zip functionality, for instance. By opening a set of these, we can also see we're building up this sort of tab layout, so you can quickly browse in between certain types of reportings, seeing the various types of values for these. Apart from the change process and the reports that come out of the box, many of the customers that utilize this product, they build their own reports also. So there are capabilities to add in other types of reporting to this. Some examples would be to generate sort of a spare parts report. You input a number for a structure or a product, and the result is all of the ones that are listed as spare parts, for instance. But we have a set of examples from various customers on how this have been used. Like a quick query for certain type of objects within the environment too. So I hope this have given you some idea how this product can be utilized. It's very much about creating an UI that is simple to browse and to use for users that do not use PLM on a daily basis, and that we can tailor this experience to their specific needs. What type of input fields there are to search from, what type of neutral files and metadata we need to retrieve from this content, and also what type of actions you need to export that data. And when it comes to the data, we can at all time also add in additional attributes. That all of these doesn't have to be lit at all time. For instance, the change warning here is something you can toggle on and off, and it goes with all of the attributes. So we can choose to take away, for instance, the thumbnails in this case, adding the change warning and removing the part number, and we will get a more dense table at this point, removing those thumbnails, for instance, as well as the part number disappearing, but also this little column showing that there is an ongoing change for some of these drawings. Could be a good notification just to know that something is ongoing with this article, and we might have a new release of this one coming out quite soon. This is also just an example of how we can present various types of information on the linking in Windchill. If it has a related ECN, we can, for instance, present this type of flag or warning indication. Apart from the searching here, and as a last food for thought, is that apart from searching directly in the UI, you can use the myPDS search product sort of as a simple integration towards other systems, or as we've been speaking about Excel, could be in Excel as well. And you can build up these types of dynamic links using the URL. So it might be small on your screens, but what it says after the PDS search here is a set of numbering. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And these numbers, they correspond with the input fields in the table. So that 0, that means the numbers field, that 1 is the baseline, 3 is ECN, and so on. So if we exchange that 0, for instance, with one of the articles we have looked at before, and we browse to that URL, you're able to perform a search directly on that number that you had in here. If we add some additional actions to this, we have a set of these, but one is, for instance, to open PDF, and I click on OK on that. It will not only perform the search, but it will open up the PDF directly. This has been used quite extensively for some of our customers to build, for instance, a link from your ERP environment towards the Windchill environment. So you will always have an updated live link towards the latest release drawing, for instance, in the Windchill environment. But you can also specify, for instance, a revision or any other attribute that you might pull from that ERP environment into that dynamic link to build up a logic presenting that specific drawing, for instance, that you're interested in. You can use these actions not only to display the drawing, but also to show, for instance, once again, the Creo view model, or generating one of those bill of material views based on that specific input from the beginning. So that's just another way that you're able to utilize this product as well. I'm just gonna finalize this a little bit on the slides page. And today, as mentioned, we have probably about 100 customers using this already. And from what we hear from them is that this really enhances the daily productivity. It gives these user groups their own way to gain access and interact with Windchill, and it saves some valuable time for the R&D team that can focus on their task of the day instead of becoming sort of a service for other parts of the organization. Really improves on the quality by always retrieving the latest accurate data directly from Windchill. And it's sort of a huge time saver when it comes to automating these repetitive tasks. So with that, I hope you have gained some input on what this product is and what you're able to do with it. And I'm going to thank you once again for taking part of this webinar. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out in the questions box. And otherwise, feel free to reach out to me on that email address, for instance, or to your sales representative. Thank you very much once again. I can't really see any questions currently, but I'm gonna stick around a few more minutes if there's anyone that come to think of anything.